I love snacking, and in all honesty, I love all sorts of foods, but there's just something so unique, so special about a nice, satisfying snack. And what makes a better snack than the aptly named finger foods? It's in the name. You pick them up on the go, you don't even have to commit to a whole plate, although I do that anyways. But imagine my surprise when I found out that my beloved finger foods, people weren't eating them with their fingers. Now, why was this? As I delved deeper into this question, I found out that this was a growing trend, even among other foods that are designed traditionally to be picked up and enjoyed. I'm thinking of stuff like pizzas, burgers, and honestly, there were a lot of infamous examples of this. Looking back, a few years ago, President Trump faced a lot of controversy, surprisingly enough, for digging into his KFC with a fork and knife. Even the great culinary mind, Gordon Ramsay, prefers to dig into his pizza, yet again with a fork and knife. What was happening here? Growing up Pakistani, eating with my hands was always a big part of my culture. But beyond that, it was just commonplace. Now, let's be clear. It's not like we don't use utensils back home. They absolutely serve a place on the dining table. However, eating with their hands was just something special. Now, you don't exactly need to be Pakistani to understand that there's something slightly strange about carving up your pizza with a fork and knife. I hope as New Yorkers we can all attest to this fact. And as I kept delving deeper into this, I discovered that possibly there was a cultural undertone to this issue. And what better example of this than the case of Zoran Mamdani? As we saw, during his mayoral campaign, Zoran Mamdani was seen eating food, right specifically with his hands. And this sparked massive media outrage. We saw comments such as, "This practice does not belong in America." Others, just as furious, took to social media to suggest that this practice was gross, strange, and outright barbaric. As a person who grew up loving finger foods and loving eating with my hands, I was left almost dazed. Why was this? Is eating with your hands really something to be feared, to be looked down upon? Is eating with your hands really all that bad? Now, as I went deeper down into this rabbit hole, I discovered something truly remarkable. In my search for answers, I realized something great. That when we eat with our hands, not only are we carrying out a beloved cultural practice, we're also engaging with our food on levels that we cannot see. The primary way we do this is through the sensations. Our fingertips are one of the most sensitive pieces of skin in the entire animal world. We are capable of feeling things as small as individual bacterial cells with our fingertips. In addition to being able to differentiate all sorts of textures, consistencies, and temperatures, all of these things act as cues in signaling our brains about the kind of food we are about to eat. So you see, when you pick food up with your hands, our fingertips signal our brains about the food we eat, better preparing our bodies for it. And our bodies accomplish this by releasing saliva, digestive enzymes, and gastric juices. All of this happens long before the first bite even reaches your stomach. Furthermore, researchers found that when you have this enhanced somatosensory interaction with your food, you actually tend to enjoy your food more. It tastes better, leading to an overall more pleasurable eating experience. Furthermore, because you are physically interacting with your food, you're simply more cognizant of it. And this heightened state of awareness about what you are going to eat actually promotes mindful eating. And mindful eating has been deeply interlinked with better portion control. When we think of flavor, we might think of it as something super simple, but in reality, it's actually something that is very multifaceted. Our brains are synthesizing tons of somatosensory information and formulating that into what we know as flavor. When we take this layer of touch out of the equation, we're removing a whole lot of sensation from the experience, something that is simply not achievable through the use of utensils. And honestly, there is something to be said about interacting with your food through touch, physically contacting it. In Korea, there's a concept known as sonmat, which loosely translates to something like hand flavor. And what it outlines is basically when a person with sonmat is preparing foods, specifically fermented ones, such as kimchi, they impart something unseen, something unique from their fingers onto the food. And for the longest time, this was regarded as just a cultural phenomenon, something science couldn't explain. But recent studies in microbiology actually reveal that there might be something to it after all. When researchers looked at the skin and the fingernails of people with sonmat, they found that there were slight but real microbial associations between the communities found on their fingers to the communities of bacteria that would eventually form onto the fermented foods. Now, this meant for me something tremendous. It meant that when we picked food up with our hands, not only were we engaging in a greater sensory interaction with our food, we were also engaging with our food through the microbial community that lives on our skin. And this should come as no surprise to us because after all, the skin is the largest organ in the entire human body, and it is home to its very own and unique microbiome, consisting of bacteria, archaea, fungi, all of which are part of the normal human flora. Now, although this serves its own unique purposes in maintaining homeostasis, something truly unique happens when this external skin microbiome comes into contact with the microbiome found in our gut. You see, external contact with microbes, such as the ones found on our skin, has actually been shown to stimulate the immune system. And this stimulation of the immune system is deeply implicated with a stronger immune system that is better prepared for actual pathogenic bacteria. This sort of has a alignment, a contrast with probiotics. We see a big interest in the growing field of probiotics. Similarly to how probiotics behave, perhaps eating with our hands and this exposure to external microbes could be working in a similar mechanism. Now, tonight I'm not promising you some miracle cure, quite the contrary. I'm instead suggesting something a bit more subtle. Because at the end of the day, there are these microbial pathways that connect our skin, food, and gut. And this is something that definitely deserves to be studied further because of the immune and gut health consequences it can have for us. Now, whenever we talk about eating with our hands, it is absolutely essential to address hygiene. It is people's greatest concern when you bring up the topic of eating with your hands. I'm here tonight to tell you all that food safety matters. Hygiene matters. All of the benefits I just listed go right out of the window if you don't walk in with clean, properly washed hands. Now you might be looking at me. What, that's it? You just have to wash your hands and all the problems go out of the room? Well, the answer to that question in most cases is yeah. Research actually shows that there are no serious health consequences of eating with your hands given that they are properly washed and sanitized. A well-cleaned hand can be just as clean as any utensil you might find in your kitchen drawer. And just think about it. Whenever you go to a restaurant, you're using utensils that have been in hundreds, if not thousands of people's mouths. But we have faith in water and soap to adequately clean and sanitize them. So why is it that we have a sort of double standard in sanitizing our hands in the very same way? This still begs the question, if hygiene isn't the problem, what is? Why is eating with our hands still so stigmatized? The answer to this question, unfortunately, often does not rely on science at all. Instead, we see that the answer might actually be based in Orientalist tropes. Orientalism is the practice of looking down upon Eastern cultures, often describing them as despotic, barbaric, and simply just backwards. Eating with our hands is a practice that is well celebrated all around the world by hundreds of cultures for hundreds of thousands of years. And it is a practice that does not deserve to be stigmatized because of a lack of cultural understanding. So I encourage you all here tonight, the next time you pick up a fry, take a second to appreciate its texture, to feel the warmth emanating from the fry, to understand the sensory experience you're engaging in, and how that's shaping the very way we eat. And most importantly, the next time you see somebody eating with their hands, take a second to pause and remember the science and not the stigma. Thank you so much.